It's time for an update on what's been happening in Vietnam. So I'm going to be talking about the lockdowns that have been happening for the last 2 months here and what's happening now with regards to restrictions lifting in different cities throughout Vietnam and also Vietnam's reopening plans. And it feels like a full-time job just keeping up with all the restrictions with regards to what you are and aren't allowed to be doing. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is just giving you a bird's eye view of what has happened, talking about my experience here in Da Nang City, and then also touching on Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. Hey everyone, it's Alex Stevenson here from Ninja Teacher, and it's been a little while since I've been making consistent videos, and you'll understand why after this video. So let's crack into it. So to start off with, pre this current wave, Vietnam was in a pretty good situation overall. There'd been a few outbreaks and then those were contained over the last year and a half. So there has been social distancing and some lockdowns on and off over that period, but it's also got back to a period where everything was completely open and the country was virtually COVID free several times, and that's how it was at least here in Da Nang right before this current wave. Then came this current outbreak, which started in July, and it has affected the entire country quite significantly. And the majority of the country has been in some form of social distancing or extreme lockdowns as well during that period from then till now. And what's been implemented is Directive 16, which is the most extreme form of social distancing and stay-at-home orders. And there's several things that Directive 16 covers, but for most people the one that affects them the most is the restriction that forces the majority of people to stay at home, and you aren't allowed to leave your home unless it's to go buy food or essential pharmaceuticals. And then on top of that, there's been the kind of extreme version of that where you aren't allowed to leave your home for any reasons whatsoever. And that's varied from city to city when and to what degree that's been implemented. But that has been, at least here in Da Nang, that has happened for quite a long period of time and in different cities as well. So I'll talk about the different cities now so you get an idea of what's been happening. So here in Da Nang, the new wave started in early July and it went up to about 100 new cases per day on average, and then peaked at about 200 new cases a day. And now the curve has gone down, and we've had a few days with 0 cases, and most days are below 10 cases per day. So for that period of nearly 3 months, we've had Directive 16 for most of that time, and then for about a period of a month and a half, we had the full stay-at-home orders. I think it was a month and a half. I just lost track of time, to be honest. And that was really tough because you had to stay at home and you weren't allowed to go outside for anything whatsoever. I guess medical emergencies, going to the hospital, and I think you had to go in an ambulance if you needed to go to the doctor or to the hospital. Now, as you can imagine, you'd be wondering how you can get food, and this was actually really difficult. What we had to do was order through our landlord or landlady, and they would put in an order with the ward boss, who's kind of like the person in your area, in your little neighborhood that's blocked off. I think they were allowed to go and shop, 1 or 2 people from your neighborhood, from your ward, were allowed to go and shop, but for the entire ward. So it wasn't a great system, to say the least. So there were periods where I put in an order for food and I couldn't get food for like 4 or 5 days even. It didn't come, and then when I did get it, it wasn't everything that I ordered. That being said, my landlady was really helpful. She really made an effort to make sure I could get everything that I needed, but the main thing is that it was very difficult to be stuck at home for that period. So essentially it was a couple of months of complete isolation because there were a few people in my building, but I didn't really see them much, and essentially I couldn't see any friends or anyone outside of the building. So it was an intense period of nearly 2 months of just being at home, not being able to leave. So it definitely took a mental toll, on my mental health, and it was difficult, and I know a lot of people went through that as well. As for the other cities in the country, Hanoi had less than 100 new cases per day, so it wasn't as affected as badly as some of the other cities in the country. And from what I gather, the lockdowns haven't been as extreme there. They've still had a lot of restrictions, but it hasn't been quite as bad as it was in Da Nang or in Ho Chi Minh City. Ho Chi Minh City has been by far the worst, and that's actually where the majority of the cases have been in the country. And you'll see about 2,000 to 5,000 new cases per day in Ho Chi Minh City. So obviously it's been affected a lot. So they've had the longest period of lockdown now, and unlike here in Da Nang and Hanoi, the cases are not going down significantly right now. So unfortunately, you're not seeing as much of reopening and restrictions lifting in Ho Chi Minh City right now. So now into some more positive news. There are restrictions starting to lift in different cities. So here in Da Nang, obviously I'm out and about right now, and that's a loud motorbike. So of course this makes sense after these extreme lockdowns. Vietnam needs to and wants to start reopening the economy, building that back up again, and they have been talking more along the lines of, you know, living with the virus. So as you can see, back on the beach here, which is amazing to be able to be out and about on the beach after all that time indoors. And what they've allowed now in Da Nang City is going out to exercise from 5 a.m. till 7 a.m. in the mornings, and then 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. It's a bit of a pity we can't go out to the beach during the day or swim just yet, but this is definitely better than not being able to do it at all. On top of that, we're allowed to go shopping in our districts. And what is actually happening is a zone system with different colorings. So there'll be a green zone, a yellow zone, and a red zone. And essentially green zones are areas in the city that haven't had any cases for a period of time. And right now we're in a green zone, which means we can go out and go to the shops and all that. So hopefully the zoning system will make it easier for areas to open up and then lock down again if there are cases. And hopefully, I saw some talk of them making those zones smaller even, so that it's not going to shut down the entire city in the future if there are some cases. What's his name? Okay.
You can call me Bao. Bao.
Bao?
Yeah.
Okay. Very cute. So along with that, restaurants are now delivering food here in Da Nang, which is great. I have had to cook every single day for myself for a long time, which I wasn't used to before. It's really cheap to eat out in Vietnam, so I would do it quite a lot. It's been kind of nice to get back into cooking, but I am glad to be able to order food sometimes as well. Like I mentioned, Ho Chi Minh City is still by far the worst and restrictions aren't lifting as much, but there are certain districts that are doing better, and they're using this zoning system to start allowing people to do more things. Like District 7 in Ho Chi Minh City is one of those, I believe, where they're allowing people out to exercise. And that is also going to be based more on if people are vaccinated or not in the future. So in addition to the zones, the plan is to get a yellow card or a green card vaccination certificate or something along those lines, where essentially you would be able to do more things once you get your vaccination card. So if you've got one shot, then you get a yellow, I believe, and then if you get a second shot, then you get the green card. So this is Vietnam's kind of plan of reopening, and I think it was Ho Chi Minh City that had this plan. They released some dates as well. I'm not really going to believe any dates until it's actually confirmed, because there's often plans that don't get implemented. But the idea, I believe, was to have everything reopen, like bars and karaoke and massage parlors. That kind of stuff will reopen early next year if that plan goes according to plan, which would be great. We'll see what happens. So talking about vaccinations, about 35 million people now have got at least one shot of vaccine out of 100 million population, but a smaller percentage are actually fully vaccinated. And I think that's only about 7 million people are fully vaccinated. But Vietnam has been going at it in earnest right now, and people are very compliant with getting the vaccine. So as soon as we do get doses arriving in the country, they get used almost straight away. And right now, Da Nang's on a big push to get the entire adult population vaccinated this month. And because it's a smaller city, 1 million population, it does seem like they're on track to do that. I think this month they're going to offer it to all foreigners in my district actually this coming week, so I might get vaccinated this week. And then we also saw up in Hanoi this week some news along the lines of certain things are reopening. People don't have to have travel passes to move around the city anymore now, and there's barber shops that have reopened and malls. So things are definitely looking positive to me, at least. As for any news with regards to moving to Vietnam and getting into Vietnam, there hasn't really been much in the way of that. I think that's going to depend on how well Vietnam is doing. And like I said, I think things are looking more positive now. There has been a lot of talk of the Phu Quoc sandbox model, which would allow people to fly into the island and go straight there without quarantine if you are vaccinated. But there isn't anything really confirmed about that. They were planning to do it next month, but not enough of the island are vaccinated, and they also had a small outbreak there, which they do say is now under control. But the plans aren't really formalized yet, and it isn't clear whether you'd even be able to leave the island after going through that period, like in Phuket in Thailand, when you can actually travel around the rest of the country after you've done your quarantine on the island. We've been keeping a close eye on this because obviously we want to relaunch our TEFL course in Vietnam. We've just been doing our online TEFL course in the meantime and helping people move to some other countries at the moment. But obviously we're keeping a close eye on this, and despite, you know, some people have talked about different things that might make a difference, I haven't seen anything that really shows it's easier to get into the country just yet, unfortunately. But I think one of the good things is, as the country gets more vaccinated, as it gets into a better situation, that's when we're going to see it become more possible to move back to Vietnam or move to Vietnam to start teaching English. But I definitely will let you know when it becomes more possible to get to Vietnam, so make sure to subscribe to the channel and I'll post updates when we get those. I'm getting attacked by a palm leaf. It's really windy out here. Alright, I think that's all for now for this video. I'll speak to you soon. Peace.